Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in here to an super early Thursday Murder Church show. Yeah, let's do it. We're going to be talking Bryan Kohberger, the murderer, the admitted murderer tonight. Going over a couple of different things. Yeah, give it a share, give it a like. Let's go.
Let's rock.
Howdy ho, Buzz Nation, what's up? Welcome in here to, like I said, an extremely early Thursday show. I got out of work a little bit early for the 4th. I'm off all next week for vacation, and I said, screw it, let's get in here and get this thing going. Boom. I do have a 4th of July show scheduled as well for tomorrow night. We're going to be watching a film, a mystery movie tomorrow. I've got a fun way to figure it out. I'm not going to disclose any of that until tomorrow night. But I got Jessica for Justice and Missy Mayhem coming over to hang out. But this show is interesting. This show is about Bryan Kohberger. The reason I have a channel here with people at it was originally because of Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger and the grifting that I did to get a lot of folks here that are no longer here because I stopped doing such things. Unlike the rest of the majority of shitty YouTube who has beat this into the ground and continue even after Bryan Kohberger admitted guilt in murdering the Idaho 4. Case in point. Hold on. I got a psycho here to show you real quick. Give me 1 second. Got a bunch of notes up here. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming in. I put mentally handicapped posts. So let's see, what was I talking about exactly? Actually, first, let me first show this. We're also going to be watching a few things, but first and foremost, signed by Bryan Kohberger, as of yesterday, I hereby admit responsibility to count 1 burglary, which requires the following elements. This is him breaking in. And then he goes on, I hereby admit responsibility to count 2, murder in the first degree. Madison Mogen, murder in the first degree, Kaylee Goncalves, murder in the first degree, Xana Kernodle, and murder in the first degree, Ethan Chapin. All right? And then, wait a minute, hold the press. What is this person, Mike DePorch? What does this fucking retard think? Hold on. I admit I was wrong. Bryan himself did indeed approach the state with a request that led to this plea deal, because that was the biggest confusion. Everyone wanted to make the point, well, I mean, they didn't come with the plea deal. This is the state. No, they didn't. They realized that all of the evidence that was against them was going to fuck him and have him being shot to death by people in a firing squad, more than likely with the death penalty. So he wanted to save face. He didn't want to die. But he wasn't asking for a plea deal, it says. He asked them for an admission into the witness protection program. Let them explain. The reason he asked for it is because he is afraid they are going to murder him in prison. You see, Bryan and Ann had arranged with the court a star alibi witness for Bryan. This witness was a local Coeur d'Alene resident with ties to the firefighter community. Not only was the witness registered as a sealed protected defense witness on the court docket, but everyone in this courtroom knows who he is and that he was subpoenaed to testify for Bryan's alibi. He was going to exonerate Bryan with irrefutable alibi evidence, but he also had successfully FOIA requested a bunch of Coeur d'Alene footage from EMT body cams from November 13th and the 12th after the killings. By the June 18th hearing for motion of continuance, the entire court staff knew Bryan would be exonerated by this witness. On June 18th, the defense team was running full sprint towards trial. Nothing in their way. No looking back. And a few days later, this very witness was murdered in murdered in an incident at a Coeur d'Alene firehouse in a purported sniper attack. This is the general conspiracy bullshit that every one of a lot of folks' favorite YouTubers dive in on. This type of shit. Not exactly this, but this style of reporting on Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger. actual mental madness. There are also sourced whistleblowers reports that Bryan had received death threats to his life already by this point, and that a family member of his was also murdered in a similar fashion the same week to send a message. And so by June 30th, Bryan immediately begged the state, not for a plea deal, but to place him in witness protection. So the powers that be decided to coordinate a fake story about the firehouse sniper incident, coordinate with the media to maintain Bryan's cover story as the guilty guy, play a fake story about a plea deal so they can get... This was posted today, folks, after yesterday, after we all with our own eyes watched Bryan Kohberger stand up in court and admit that he murdered these fucking kids. Oh my God. Play a fake story about a plea deal so that they can get Bryan into witness protection ASAP. That's why the plea deal makes no sense given the facts of the case. That's why the firehouse sniper story also makes no sense and is full of continuity holes. And that's why this all feels confusing and like it was sprung on us out of nowhere. A fake plea deal guilter narrative is the perfect way to stop all court proceedings and to get Bryan into the witness protection ASAP. Poor guy. He may get Epsteined in his cell anyways. He is horrified he is going to be killed and knows this fake plea hearing is the fastest way to get into witness protection, but he is also so close to exonerating himself. He was so close. He was so close to exonerating himself. Do you guys remember that part? Do you guys remember that? How could you forget? We're living in insane times, folks, and a lot of these folks that are coming through here trying to make you believe that every single person is innocent is out of their fucking minds. They are grifting, you know? Everybody likes to make fun of the grift and joke about the grift a little bit, but there's also a reality to that as well, where a bunch of shitty people do play into this. And yesterday I was watching, I'm not going to name names on here, I'm not going to get into the name or even pointing at people. But yesterday, watching some folks, again, watch the actual proceedings of Bryan Kohberger live, admitting the guilt of what he did to these fucking kids, still watching it and going, oh, something's up here. Something's going on here. Then they turned on Ann Taylor, the only person who was trying to help him out and get him free with a bunch of bullshit, mind you. And how far can the defense attorney actually go? Most likely knowing that what they are spouting is nonsense and bullshit in a quadruple murder case, in a single murder case, but much less a quadruple murder case with this much eyes on it. I think that there should be some questions asked there. Did she go too far with trying to get him off? I don't fucking know. Craziness is out here, dude. What was this one? Hold on. What was this note? Done got myself hot. I'm done sweating. All right, so this is a fun one. So one of my favorite accounts leading up to this, I know a lot of people didn't like him because he was he does get pretty vile, but I think that this person knows the case better than anyone else I've even seen talk about the fucking case. Mask guy, real mask guy, has destroyed these Kohberger fuckfaces, and he's gutted them. He's taken it and he's actually gutted them with his own K-bar knife. Look at these fucks that he finds. Memory Lane, whoever the hell this is. Again, I've been called all sorts of names the last couple of days, but I stand by my theory nobody died. This case has to do with trafficking both drugs and humans, and I believe Kaylee Goncalves was talking to law enforcement about it, and things were getting hot. Steve Goncalves bought a place in Puerto Rico. This is the norm, and this person would be accepted by those fuckface accounts that are not only on X, but the YouTubers as well, that would push any narrative as long as it aligns with them, because that means that person is going to be in their chat, being their friend, maybe giving them some loot. When I first started this shit, I was that fucking person. I've been very open about that, and I got horribly embarrassed when I started working with some legit motherfuckers because all I did was talk about the conspiracy behind Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4. The drug stuff, the neighbor stuff. Some of the stuff that Ann Taylor tried as a last alley-oop to get in to what we just had, you know, some alternate folks that had nothing to do with this, but she went down the crazy deep dive rabbit hole of some of these people. I want to go crazy on the names, but I'm not. I usually don't do that, and I'm not going to start now because of this, but you know exactly who I'm fucking talking to, and if any of those pieces of shit watch this, Suck a fucking dick because you're a piece of shit. You fucking suck. You are the reason that true crime is a cesspool. Fuck you. And that's to fucking experts, defense attorneys, and the bullshit people that are just out here spouting out of the side of their fucking face that don't know what they're talking about. He admitted it in court, you fucking stupid motherfuckers. This was interesting right here. This was pretty interesting. Let me take a breather. We're going to watch Bryan Enton, one of the best out here, probably the best reporter I've literally seen in the field, who doesn't just post bullshit. Got a moment to talk to Dr. Ramsland, the teacher, one of the teachers of Bryan Kohberger, who along this time she wasn't going to speak because she was going to be a witness in this, and she finally spoke a little bit. And anybody that didn't watch this, or anybody that did watch this, I apologize, but I'm going to go through this just a little bit here. Let me pull this up real quick.
Renowned forensic psychologist, Dr. Katherine Ramsland. As you may know, she was Bryan Kohberger's professor and advisor at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. She has not spoken publicly about Bryan Kohberger until now. She's been on the show everybody. Talking about other cases, but she's been very, very careful not to talk about Kohberger because of the trial, because she was going to be a witness at the trial, and she now...
Early days of this whole thing, Dr. Ramsland was a big point of contention and something that I dove into. There's still live feeds from 2.5 years ago of me and Dan. I'd pull Dan into it. And Dan, I want to thank Dan because he is one of the, Dan and Bob Mata and Jay, who's in the chat right now. Jay doesn't even know it. And I've said it, and I've said it about Jay, and I've said it about Bob, and they know it because I've said it out loud. And Dan especially are some of the best fucking people I've had in my corner because they're part of the reasons I got out of that portion of YouTube, out of that cesspool of YouTube. And Dan, I'll never forget, like some days we'd go on, he's like, we're going to be talking about this again. And I was like, yeah, but dude, I was fucking, listen to this shit. You want to know how fucking intoxicating it is to have one of these fucking channels? It's big, it's hugely intoxicating. When I first started this shit, I was gaining 1,000 subs a month off of this Bryan Kohberger shit. Off of talking out of the side of my fucking head, out of making any kind of conspiracy relevant and just playing into these poor folks' delusions, quite frankly. I gained 6,000 subs in 6 months, and I could have kept on going easily. Easily could have kept on just stoking that fire and letting it continue to go. But I didn't. I backed out and I started to do a lot more legit shit. And I'm so fucking proud that I did do that. And there's so much money to be made in this crap. Like, it's crazy, dude.
He now feels comfortable to open up to us. And we've got so many questions, Dr. Ramsland, that I've got so many questions I've wanted to ask you for so long. I want to start with, how did you first meet Bryan Kohberger? What classes of yours was he in?
Okay, I want to be just clear that I'm still within the FERPA limitations that protect students and student information. So I will talk within that. I met him in the fall of 2018 when he came to DeSales University. He had an associate's degree, and he was going to get into our 4-year program as a psychology major. He selected the forensic track, which made him an advisee for me because I managed the forensic track. And he was also in my class that semester.
Yeah, I want to come on a little early today.
Dr. Ramsland talks about FERPA. I should have mentioned that.
Get this going. I've been
it's a federal
chomping
law,
at the bit a little bit.
She is not allowed to talk about
Joe. He's a real one out here also.
Their grades,
you're not following Joe Schmo. He's doing the actual work, the actual leg work, not just depending on bullshit and not making up bullshit to get views. Doing the real shit.
It's almost like a HIPAA. So she's going to tell us what she can, but unless Bryan Kohberger signs off, she's legally not allowed to talk about certain elements of his academic career. So just keep that in mind if there's some things that Dr. Ramsland can't answer. What was your perception of him?
He seemed like eager to be in the classroom. He was polite. He was respectful, intense,
what's up,
and curious. And there was no reason for me to think that he was anything other than...
Love you, Jay. Love you, dude. He says, Steve is a man of integrity, and that's hard to find. Dude, thank you so much, man. Me and Jay have talked, we've been talking for years, but we've talked recently about some things, and yeah, dude, no, I think you're as well one of the good ones out here that has a lot of integrity and has always done it the correct way, dude. Like, and I will never not get away from what from the things that I pushed. Honest to God, for about 4 or 5 months there, immediately after the arrest, and the first time I went live was when he got arrested with this, and I never stopped, and I put the pedal to the metal, and I got lucky with some viral videos that hit like 70,000 off of the Kohberger thing. Again, more bullshit that was actually kind of going after the fucking roommates a little bit. Like, I used to play into that absolute gross shit. Nah, dude, and thank you, Jay, because I mean, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? Like, it is intoxicating to get into this space and then be one of those people that's just like, yes, yes, yes.
Someone who is really interested in this potential career.
Was there anything looking back now that was strange about him, or that you noticed?
Jay on a wheel here. We're building a wheel still.
When I look back, there really isn't anything that stood out to me. I think when you're a teacher, your instinct is to accept students at face value. You don't, start with suspicions or.
Yo, Jack, what's up, man?
There really weren't any red flags.
Another really good one.
He was always really quite respectful and
love Jack.
Grateful. He would thank me for things. He was attentive.
Real quick, this Sunday, me and Jack, Never True a Word, we're doing part 2 of the Ted Bundy last ever interview breakdown. I'll be hanging out. Jack will be doing the legwork. He'll be doing all the heavy lifting, and he's going to be analyzing again the second portion of the Ted Bundy last interview here. One thing about Ramsland I find interesting is at the beginning, you could find some different interviews. I believe it was Surviving the Survivor that interviewed her pretty early on, and this was before she was actually interviewed before there was actually an arrest made, which is interesting because then it ended up being a student, and then she kind of had to cut everything off, which smartly she did. So I don't know, but she's got some books that she's written with the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. Yeah.
He would do the work. I didn't have any concerns.
Yes, ma'am. Get on that thing.
What I think it was 4 classes
I got a lot
that
of cool
you taught
books, too.
him in. What were those classes?
There were 3 undergraduate courses in the forensic track that I taught, and he was in all of them. Well, one was Introduction to Forensic Psychology. Another was my death investigation class, which was called Psychological Sleuthing. And the third one was called Dangerous Minds, the Psychology of Antisocial Behavior. And then he got into the graduate program in criminal justice for a master's degree. And he took a course with me called Behavioral Criminology.
Is there anything, Dr. Ramsland, when you look back and you think about the curriculum of those classes, and not getting into his specific experience, but when you think about what you taught in those classes that you think, oh my gosh, he may have used that in what he's now accused of doing here in Idaho?
Well, as it got closer, she was going to be on the witness list, but even early on, she kind of, after it became known that it was Bryan Kohberger, I don't think she did an interview. I could be wrong there, but I think she was playing it pretty smart even early on, because out the gate, once that was learned that he went to that school in Pennsylvania and had Ramsland as a teacher, I made videos on it, okay? I literally have thumbnails with the BTK killer and her and Kohberger on the same thumbnail, like.
Well, the antisocial behavior course involves serial killers and mass murderers, and we do a lot of case analysis. I use two books that I wrote. One was written with the BTK killer, whom you just mentioned, and his decision process and the crimes and how he thought about them and felt about them and what was it like for him,
remembers.
To be caught. So that's
Tasha,
a
what's
very
up?
intense book.
I'm trying to calm myself down here
called The
before I
Mind
keep
of a
going.
Murderer, which was about various behavioral experts over the past century who interviewed killers, mass murderers, and serial killers to get as close as possible, spending a lot of time with them to get as close as possible to their process of becoming a criminal. And so he would have been exposed to that. I think now looking back, I would look at maybe some of the things that interested him as being, something that gives me pause, but we always have to think about, we all know, everyone in this field, forensic psychology and criminology, know that we could have students who might become offenders. But we also know that the vast majority of our students will not, and will instead go into a field like law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service.
Yeah, I don't think Kohberger, like, this isn't the norm. Like, someone that's taking these classes.
So we know that there's always a risk that we're attracting somebody who wants to do something terrible.
You have an outlier like Bryan Kohberger. And actually, I'm going to go and read this. We'll come back to that in just a second. Did anyone see this? Let me shrink this so I can get the entire thing on here. I posted this right before I came on here. The prison where Kohberger's going to be headed to. Bryan Kohberger is set to spend the rest of his life in one of America's worst prisons, a maximum security hellhole that faces accusations of feces-smeared cages, brutally violent guards, rioting inmates, and a biohazard ventilation system. The 30-year-old convicted killer of 4 University of Idaho students will serve his sentence in the state's most brutal prison alongside Chad Daybell. The child murderer and husband of Doomsday Cult Mom we're all familiar with. I know Joe's familiar with Lori Vallow. Idaho Maximum Security Institution, where Kohberger is expected to be sentenced to life in prison, opened in 1989 and hosts the Gem State's most disruptive male residents and violent criminals. Since then, it has developed a reputation as not just the toughest prison in the state, but one of the harshest in the nation. IMSI was named one of the 15 worst prisons in America by Security Journal Americas in 2024, alongside other infamous institutions, including Louisiana State Penitentiary, aka The Farm, San Quentin in California, and Attica Correctional Facility in Western New York. The magazine highlights its alleged harsh treatment of inmates, excessive use of solitary confinement, and lack of mental health resources, violence between inmates and allegations of excessive force by corrections officers were also brought up, as well as overcrowding leading to a tense and volatile environment. In 2016, one post I saw yesterday was someone like saying, "Do those eyebrows look bushy to you?" Like they've never seen a picture of Bryan Kohberger before this one, and we've all seen the bushy eyebrow pics, and now that he's shaved these down, like, I can't with people because they aren't honest with themselves. If you get so caught up in a delusional idea that it doesn't make sense and you have to jump out on a limb to make it make sense, it's probably bullshit. In 2016, the newly appointed director of the Idaho Department of Correction looked to reform the state's use of solitary as punishment. Many of the inmates were locked away in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. This meant little to no human interaction, food in cells, and only showering 3 times a week, a pattern some inmates live under for decades. 97% of these guys are going to get out and walk into an Idaho community. If we treat them like crap, if we treat them like animals, they're going to walk out of a prison like that, they said. In particular, he highlighted the dangers of excessive solitary confinement for inmates. You do that for 10 or 15 years, you've created a monster. Kohberger, 30, who on Tuesday pleaded guilty again to the murders, but he's expected to be transferred to this Idaho Maximum Security Institution some 10 miles south following his sentencing on July 23rd. So he's in the last days of this jail he's at right now. The remote prison is surrounded by a double perimeter fence along with razor wire and electronic detection system and 24-hour armed patrol. Last year, 90 inmates at the IMSI went on a hunger strike demanding better treatment and services, and they just let them die. No, I'm just joking. They complained of feces-covered recreation cages, long bouts of isolation, serious mental care delays, and a dirty HVAC system that they compared to a biohazard. The prison was forced to confirm that it halted many services, including access to certain religious practices, in 2020 in response to the unprecedented staff shortages because of COVID. To quell the riot, prison authorities used pepper spray and tear gas on the inmates. The IDOC claimed the protests' ringleaders wanted to force staff to segregate housing by gang and racial affiliation. The IDOC didn't respond immediately to requests for comment. So I wonder how long they'll keep him separate before they actually just drop him in Gym Pop. And that's actually a good question for Chad Daybell, too, if anyone knows if he's already in there. The prison built to replace the original Idaho Penitentiary, which was built even before Idaho became a state in 1890. Whoa, that's actually pretty interesting tidbit there. Can house a maximum of 549 inmates, including a dedicated section for the mentally ill offenders. God dang, dude, it sounds like actual hell. The prison built to replace the original... It offers restrictive housing beds and disciplinary detention. It also includes Idaho's death row, where all 8 of the state's male inmates facing death sentences are held. Kohberger's deal, which also spared him a trial and the chance of death by firing squad, means he must spend the rest of his life in prison with no opportunity for parole of appeals after the PhD criminology student admitted to killing the Idaho 4. Other famous inmates at the prison include Daybell, currently on death row for murdering his first wife, Tammy, as well as his second wife, Lori Vallow's 2 children, Kaylee, Ryan, and J.J. Vallow. Serial killer Gerald Pizzuto is awaiting execution for 4 1985 murders in Idaho and Washington. Another resident is serial killer Thomas Eugene Creech. I've heard of this one, who is believed to have murdered as many as 43 people between 74 and 81. There's your roommate. There's a buddy for you, Bryan, huh? Fellow serial killer. Or you're just a wannabe serial killer, actually. Yeah, this guy's probably going to laugh at you in the cell and call you a bitch. He was convicted of 5 killings. I also found it interesting. There was one article that I don't have it with me in front of me, but it was from like 96, and it was the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, who had another similar stabbing case that was eerily similar to the Kohberger stuff, actually. Not exactly, but still pretty eerily similar. And I thought that was interesting. Just, again, he was so passionate about the Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4. And anybody that saw him yesterday, and there's another thing that I do want to show here. I know I'm all over the place right now, but anybody that saw him reading out the offenses and basically breaking it down after I think that the judge, maybe it was before, but Bill Thompson, as he was reading through it and he started to actually read what happened to these kids, he started to break down a little bit and had to get his composure, and he had to take a drink of water. You can tell that guy is passionate and compassionate about his job and about what he does out here. And all we've seen is we've just seen the worst types of people try to really go after anybody and everybody that doesn't fit their little conspiracy theories. Like it's full on, absolutely disgusting for the most part. But we will jump back here for a minute as well. But I do want to show this right here. I've actually got it paused up to right when they start talking to Bryan Kohberger here. So hold on. We're jumping a little bit all over the place, but bear with me, folks.
Obviously, the written plea agreement will speak for itself and be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very
Jan. What's up, Brooklyn?
well. All right. Miss
Oh, wow, interesting.
Taylor, have you
See,
had
that's something actually I think about Bryan, right? Wouldn't he always kind of be like this potential person that could be hurt or killed? But then you think back to like Jeffrey Dahmer, how he actually was killed. He ended up in Gen Pop, right? And he was murdered by another convict. Even though the Jeffrey Dahmer messed with these prisoners as well, from what I heard, he might have had a death wish. He might have wanted to be killed, quite frankly, because he used to mess with them when they would eat and shit and stare at dudes. And at least, maybe I'm speculating here just a little bit or going out on a limb, but that's how I remember it.
Sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client.
Going crazy in here, brother.
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client?
And coming through the Cash App. Hey, Xana. Boom. Boom. $5 holler. I got you on this thing. Thank you so much, Xana. Always a supporter, always coming through, always helping me out. Where are we right now on this thing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we're only like 4 away from spinning that son of a bitch. Thank you so much, Xana.
Client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those.
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning.
I think he might have wanted to be killed.
I do this
Does anyone else remember those stories of him like messing with people when they were eating lunch and
that
stuff?
you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not being before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth?
Literally watching folks watch this live yesterday, snuck into a couple of these live channels, and it took everything inside of me not to say some shit, not to be like, what is wrong with you? You're hearing it with your own ears. Somebody in this position, if they didn't actually kill these kids, would not admit it unless they wanted to get away from the death penalty. That's the only excuse. That's the only reason that they would admit this at this point. He realized, and Taylor also realized, that the state had substantial evidence. All right, don't listen to anybody that's telling you they didn't have evidence, that the DNA wasn't bullshit, because it absolutely wasn't. And then all of the other stuff that leaked through Dateline basically ended up being true. The pictures that came out that they said was AI, real. He went back to the apartment, or to the house after 9, went back and took that photo when he's throwing the thumb up. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might be talking out of my ass here, sent that to his mom. Like, all the metadata, all the Amazon purchases, all of the deleted history, turning the phone off, it all adds up, and it all paints a picture and corroborates exactly what the state is alleging to, how Bryan Kohberger killed these innocent children, kids, teens, whatever you want to say, young adults. It makes sense if you let it make sense and you don't go out on a limb and you start saying this witness protection stuff, or this drug stuff, or it was the neighbors, or maybe it was this guy, or maybe it was that guy. Maybe it was the guy who left his DNA on a fucking knife sheath underneath one of the victims' bodies. Maybe it was the guy that turned his phone off for the perfect time period from traveling between Washington State University to the house, and then turned it on after. Maybe it's the guy that doesn't actually have any kind of legit alibi at all. Maybe it's the guy that bought the K-bar knife off Amazon, and then after the murders and threw the knife weapon, the murder weapon away, tried to repurchase it. Maybe all of this stuff kind of makes fucking sense if you let it. And you stop, again, trying to clout yourself and grift yourself into... That's the only thing I can say about it. There's plenty of people that have had their brains warped and the delusion set up. And you know what? Some of those people I can even feel bad for. But also, it's hard because they won't even listen. All right? But then you have the other side of it, which is the creators that have really been the impingement on this. The people that have really pushed it. The real shitbags.
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the...
Showed no emotion. The prosecutor showed more emotion than this guy.
sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000.
Jersey Jen, I love
and
you.
a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder.
Jersey Jen, let me get you on this motherfucking wheel. Show someone PB love, y'all. Jersey Jen, thank you so much. I love you, seriously. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on.
Shit, I'm getting blown up right now. Cash App Susan coming through the Cash App, $20. Stream today for BK. Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate that. Susan is an absolute G who has helped me out tremendously, especially through Gypsy Times. Everybody that's helped me through Gypsy Times, I love you guys with all of my heart. Susan has been a G for so long now. I love you. Thank you so much. And then coming right behind that, Kathy coming through with a 420 driving home from work. Hey, you be careful while you're listening out there, Kathy. Don't let me get you too hyped up with my crazy on here. But thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. We might have a will. Let me see where we're at.
On each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment. To operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
I could see that, actually. You know, I'll give you that, MB. It is hard to please everyone.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
Boom.
And
Kat
do you
finished out
understand the
that
nature
will.
of the
Thank you, Kat.
charges
Appreciate that.
That you've been charged with that I understand
We
you're
got a
going to
will.
plead guilty today to?
Boom.
Yes.
Wildside, love you.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone?
Ayana just came through the Cash App and said, "Please add an entry for J to the will if you can, and spell it J-A-E." Is that J or is that a different J? But that will be on a new will, so I'll go ahead and get that on there. Thank you so much, Ayana, for that 5. And then I got J on here. Fuck yeah! Thank you guys.
Promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty.
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anyone, other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
What kind of reward would you get for if you plead guilty here? We're gonna hook you up. We're gonna get you set up.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel,
Okay, cool,
obviously
cool.
there have been a number of
I thought that's what you meant.
motions
I wanted to be
filed,
sure. I'm like, is
suppress
there another
evidence
J
in
I'm
this
not sure
case.
about? Gotcha. Thank you,
Other than
Ayana.
those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
It'd be hard not to be everyone in this courtroom right now, including this judge, and being like, then what the fuck have we been doing for the last 2 years? This is also to you, Ann Taylor, and her partners. What have we been doing for the last 2 fucking years here, Mr. Kohberger?
Have you discussed fully the
game are we
matter of
playing?
pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you
will.
understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Now, there's no appeal now. It's over.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case should you not plead guilty. Did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Dude,
Yes.
no one would do
Include
this.
a right to the presumption of innocence.
People take plea deals for lesser stuff. If your option is death, this is the only reason he would take this, is that he does not want to die by the state. That's the only logical reason that he would do this right now, right? The evidence has built up and you are going to be convicted by a jury of your peers with what we have here. And I'm sure Ann Taylor, again, the defense is who asked for this plea. Let that be stated clearly. That's still rumors out there saying that's not what's happening. The defense asked for this. Ann Taylor must have gotten with Kohberger privately and said, hey, it's over. I can't do anything. The alternate perpetrators got last week crushed. For you, I tried to implicate other innocent people. That was crushed. That right there. So many of those little things, I still think that Ann went too far with some of this. All right? Again, maybe she could argue the wool was pulled over her eyes too. She was doing the best for her client, which she probably was. Fine, sure. At the same time, it makes you ask the question. It makes you, what was going on here? I mean, you're telling me. I get it. Bob Motta's one of my best friends. I love Bob Motta, defense attorney, who is incredible at what he does. And I've heard it, and I know it. You fight for your client, all right? But at some point, when she's looking at this evidence and you come across and to the conclusion that, hey, I think this guy did it.
Of innocence, do you understand that?
Yes.
I
You
don't
have
know.
the right to require the state to prove your guilt.
These are not legal opinions.
As to each element beyond a
Just
reasonable
talking
doubt.
shit
Do you
on the
understand
internet.
that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I agree with
You
this.
understand you would
Susan,
have
honestly.
a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning
But,
you would not be
either way, he's going
compelled
to be
to
stuck in
testify
prison
if
for a
you
long time,
did not
waiting
wish
for that
to,
death.
had
It
you
ain't going
not
to be
pled
quick.
guilty.
We do know that.
Yes.
You okay, me?
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, as to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right.
It makes sense. And I might be being a little too harsh on her because I mean I
So
like
as
her.
to count
I
one,
think she did do
burglary,
a
the
good
state
job.
would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence, Loca County, Idaho, you 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen,
You're
a
right.
human
I
being,
mean-
by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count three, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being, by stabbing her,
Mandy.
from which she died. As to count four, the state
Been
would have had
ranting
to have
and raving in
proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count five,
Thanks, Akasha, for hanging out.
also murder in the
Happy
first
4th.
degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have?
And that's something we never even really got into. We got into the allegations that the family knew a little bit more, maybe a sister. I've heard these rumors. This is something that I'm not going to talk about in depth because I don't know if it's true or not. But, you know, you hear about the possibility of his sister even contacting the FBI or the police herself because she had suspicion. And I guess when he went back for the holiday during Christmas, everyone's seen what he was kind of doing and acting like, right? Seems like he was real fucking paranoid. Just from some of the stuff we've heard with how he was arrested. Again, I don't know. I don't know how factual some of this stuff is because we didn't get the trial to get it all laid out. But I don't know. It seems like seems to me like he was separating trash and gloves, walking trash away from his house to the neighbors, cleaning. And Thompson even mentions it here. Clean the car thoroughly. The one thing that Bryan Kohberger fucked up on was dropping that knife sheath in the melee and the madness of the moment. And then, even when he went back at 9, if he would have walked in then and grabbed the knife sheath, he would have probably been seen going in, I guess, maybe, who knows. But he might have even had a better opportunity to get rid of that evidence. He would have gotten away with this if not for that little mistake, I think. And if this didn't go super viral at the time and get the FBI involved, I think he would have still maybe gotten away with it because of, again, he had no connection. That's scary as fuck to think about. If someone really wants to murder someone, and or someone like this that studies murderers and was actually going into the crime field, going to college and becoming a fucking doctor in it, that's scary as shit that someone can kill strangers, and if you're smart enough and do it correctly, you can get away with it because you don't have a connection to that person. That's scary as fuck. I mean, and then there's nothing we can do about it. That's just life. But he would have gotten away with this, I honestly think, if it didn't go viral and all of these eyes didn't get on this case. And that's even helped from these pro-burgers online. Because even though they were doing the conspiracy streams, that still got it into the zeitgeist of America. And everyone has been talking about this ever since. So, I don't know.
To have proven.
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting
I've heard
those
that,
things are
Salty,
true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude.
I want to
The
also
Ethan
make,
stuff, the
for
leg
the record,
stuff. Dude.
the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that
It's
purports to
horrific.
have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
Whoa, you're way ahead of the rest of the group.
And then let me ask you, did you,
It really was.
on November 13th, 2022,
Worst nightmare shit.
enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you,
Should have seen some of those tweets I've already shown on here, Mandy. Fucking hell.
on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder
Crazy.
Xana
This is so surreal.
Kernodle, a human being?
It's surreal, dude.
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
I mean, go crazy.
And then on
Like, honest to God, I don't want to just go after people by name because you know what I mean? It's bullshit. It's honestly low hanging fruit and easy to do. And then you get in some kind of weird fucking feud and that shit keeps you up. Like, I don't want any of that. I'm just going to give my opinions. And I think the people that know who I'm talking about know.
or about November
they-
13th,
if they care to watch this, they're
2022,
gonna feel it.
again,
They probably
in
won't. They don't
Latah
give a
County,
shit.
Idaho, did you kill and
They're gonna
murder
make
Ethan
money watching
Chapin, a
this.
human being?
Yes.
Is that Marissa?
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing in his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence
That's
would
what I was
indicate-
kind of asking earlier. Mandy says, I have a question. How do y'all feel about how Ann Taylor doubled down extensively on his innocence? And do you think she knew the truth? It doesn't matter. Just curious. That's what I almost feel like I'm being a little too harsh on her at times. Because at the end of the day, her job is to basically make sure this guy doesn't die, essentially. But yeah, like here near the end, was there points after the alibi shit? Like, this isn't an alibi. Should she have been like, hey, sorry, this actually doesn't work, but I'm going to go up here and say it anyway? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've gotten a little too hard on
July
her. but
9th of 2022.
That was the best thing I saw when you said Plea
Kohberger's
Burger.
phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular
Sure,
tower.
thanks for coming in.
during
Happy
late
4th.
night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Got a banger tomorrow, guys.
Approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not
Real
have...
quick, while I've got a load of people in here tomorrow night, Frill Friday, I've got Jessica for Justice coming through and Missy Mayhem. We're going to have a three-way dance in here. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be watching a movie that I don't even know. It would be impossible for me to know what we're going to be watching the way we're doing it tomorrow. I'm not going to explain anything. You have to show up to see how we do this. That will be free here on YouTube, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Jack, never a truer word in the chat there. After Murder Church Sunday, about 3 Eastern on Sunday, we've got part 2 of the Ted Bundy last interview analysis, the breakdown of his words by Jack. Exciting stuff. Thanks everyone for coming in here again. I know I've been a little bit high strung during this one, but this is crazy. Like, this has been the one trial that I've anticipated and looked forward to covering. And now we've made it here. And I will say this: yesterday, a lot of people were saying that Kohberger needs to, and I wanted it too. I want him to actually explain why. Right? You kind of want that why. You're being left without a why still at the end of the day. But I will say that I did at least like how the Judge Hippler I've really enjoyed. I like the way he laid it out, and Kohberger did have to say yes verbally. I'm glad it just wasn't a yes, and then it's just all he laid out every victim's name. And then even have Bill Thompson here, what we're watching currently, kind of go over everything. I can accept that.
Have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop.
Miss Peaches. I don't block anyone. I just mute them. I have a slew of muted accounts.
In the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m.
Oh, God. Where's that lady? Come through here now, WS.
On Moscow Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop
Lord.
of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022.
He's already starting to get a little shaky here, his
evidence would
voice.
show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately
There was like a weird echo here. It was in the feed.
4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow, that would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving,
is already smarter than
stopped
Kohberger.
at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogen's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State.
I remember that. I was like,
Forensic
am I
Lab,
losing my mind?
And single source male DNA
send that to me,
was found
Andy.
on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath.
Hey, everyone, I'm seeing all the
state's
shares right
evidence
now.
would
Thanks,
show
everyone.
that
Shelly,
Xana
Bluebird.
still
Thank
awake
you,
at
guys.
this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana.
Interesting.
And he ended up killing her also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were 2 other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so
I appreciate everyone for hanging out. I'm going to spin a wheel here in a moment.
Defendant's
We're going to
car
give away
is
some
seen
stuff.
on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone.
This video looks, I haven't even watched it. I'm just kind of scrolling through it. It looks crazy.
Towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived.
Thank you, Mandy.
About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it
might want to restart this
area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Got a little bit crazy earlier.
He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up.
There we go. I'm glad you made it, Kathy.
The defendant's phone.
Thank you so much
Lewis,
for that 420.
Lewis and Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 2, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week,
I was surprised we got the yeses.
Show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate.
This is something me and Dan talked about or pretty early on, like not early on when it was still going deep down into the conspiracies. There's a point in time where we like sort of did a shift, and I started covering everything and a lot more content, a lot more stuff within true crime, and we started to kind of go into more of the side of the possibility of Bryan being the guy early on. We didn't just make content exclusively about that, but we have a video specifically about this license plate and the registration change that we were talking about then seems extremely significant, because after the murders and everything that's going to be on the surveillance, possibly on the surveillance, is going to look like a Washington car. It's not going to have that front license plate, right? Or the opposite. Yeah, they would have been like, this is an out-of-town car. Like, I remember us talking about that. And when we talked about it, we were made fun of relentlessly. I remember that.
The vehicle seen on the surveillance
Yo, Holly,
cameras
I'm glad you made it.
and its car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection.
That's right, yeah. It's just his autism. He's an awkward guy, okay? He doesn't show emotion like everyone else.
Sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic.
I don't know, there's a lot of drug dealer ones. There's these two people. We made a video on that also. There's these two people, Emma something and her boyfriend, that got arrested shortly after this, and they used to go to the parties. They got implemented as possibly being the murderers. They were even on a body cam outside of the house at one point. We did, again, one of my biggest videos is on that conspiracy, actually. The Enan Harsh, the neighbor, being the actual murderer, and all the interviews he did after the fact, which he was an odd cat. He was an odd character. Just made everyone dive deeper. Probably the newest one is Mass Guy from X being the murderer because he knows just a little too much. He's a little too accurate with information.
Where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Mogen's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court, in public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment...
Dude, that should be... They might not be able to recover it, especially if he threw it into a freaking river, but they should make him say the whereabouts of where he dropped the murder weapon. He's admitting to the murders now. Let's go down that route as well.
Was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind
they're spinning
characterization.
currently.
There was virtually nothing
They're
there.
having an actual
nothing
meltdown.
Nothing of evidentiary value was found.
Zep.
And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks.
The new theories are getting even wilder.
The time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally.
He trimmed that son of a bitch up.
Had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, and those compartments in the doors. We try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside.
There we go.
And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering...
One of the most interesting things that came out of this was the TikTok psychic. The TikTok psychic lady that is, I think that's still in litigation now. She was coming after one of the teachers, dude. This is the thing. These people like to pull out real people that are not even associated, dude. I think she was a teacher that had Kaylee in a class, something like that. And this lady was saying how she was really jealous of I want to say Kaylee Goncalves, and she was actually wanting to, I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was some crazy love triangle bullshit that she was spouting out, and she would not back down from this either. And the lady, it went super crazy viral. The teacher, the lady that worked at Idaho, the University of Idaho, sued this lady, and this lady will still go on TikTok lives and talk about how she's going to win this and going to beat this, and how she's right and how she knows what really happened. She's getting her pantsuit off, and she still can't admit that she's wrong. What is with people today that can't admit they're wrong? Like, it's hard. I get it. It happens to me all the fucking time. But you have to be able to sit back and go, all right, I fucked up. You know what? Let me chill out. Let me pull back here just a little bit. People can't do that nowadays.
The defendant has studied crime. In fact,
that was a crazy one,
detailed
Micah.
paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would.
One YouTuber was doing a lot of good work on that.
State is prepared to do and has been prepared to do.
Informed with the
would
latest
show
findings
that
and
as
stuff.
the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022. Excuse me.
He's getting choked up here. Look at Bryan. Look at him.
Mr. Kohberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed.
And did he go there? You know, we've all talked about who was the target, yada, yada. Did he go there for one specific person and everything just spiraled out of control? That's what seemingly happened, right? Poor Ethan, poor Xana, poor Kaylee even. Poor Maddie for that, but one person seems to be a target here. And then everybody else also in the house, and much less the other two roommates that didn't get murdered. Bryan Kohberger just went on a fucking rampage, killing 4 people, probably tired as fuck. Like, that's wild, dude.
Intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought.
Whoa, really?
Maddie Mogen.
Kohberger?
Kaylee Goncalves. Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle. Thank you.
Bro.
Thank you.
Dude, anybody that has a bad word to say about Bill Thompson can suck my fucking dick too, quite honestly. Like, that dude's done the fucking work, bro. Like, and treated like shit by the public.
All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly,
So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to get in there. I really wanted to hear Kohberger, and then I just moved on a little bit further past that. I don't know. You know, there could be a possibility I could do some more stuff on this. I wanted to really get out here and get some of my real feelings across. I've been absolutely annoyed by tons of people. Again, I'm not going to get into names, and I'm not going to go to that. I'm not going to go that low, quite frankly, because I think that's what people want. People like to get into these weird fucking X feuds and YouTube feuds, and it's not for me, man. It's not for me anymore. I ain't got brain cells for that shit. So I'm just going to tell you what I think, quite fucking frankly. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for coming in here. Let's spin a wheel real quick. We got some stuff to give away. I'm going to give away some Murder Church magnets, some new Hell Yeah magnets. These are super cool. Boom, magged up here, maggots. I've got something for your drinks, publicly buzzed coasters for the summer, and then I've got these dope ass sticker packs right here, unopened. Dandy Savage, partner in crime, and in the very back you get a Murder Church sticker. All of that is going to be given away right now. And again, I apologize for the writing, and some of this isn't the most legible, but I think I can make it through it. I'm going to do a pre-spin just to make sure we're rolling here. So hold on. Okay, all right. She's loosened up. All right, good luck, everyone. That's a good spin, Daddy. That's a good spin. Who is that? Who's in the orange? It's hard to read. Catgrow! Catgrow is the winner, ladies and gentlemen. Catgrow coming through. Catgrow always coming through also. Let me get you in the winner circle. A new wheel has already been made, and Xana, the J one that you got it starts out the brand new wheel. So let me write this in here again so I do not forget. I got to start getting some stuff out here next week, actually. It's been a couple of weeks since I've gotten anything out. Catgrow. But it is the 4th of July. Stickers. Magnets. Coaster. Gotcha. Boom. Please come through tomorrow night, guys. Tomorrow night we got a really fun one, a really good show coming on, and we're going to be watching a movie. And again, it's impossible to say what this movie is going to be. All right, I've got something cool to debut tomorrow night that I'm going to be able to randomly do, and it should be for a long period of time. It's not going to be every week, but it's going to be something that we can do when I feel a little froggy, when I don't know what I want to watch, or if we don't do a voting show. This one's going to be interesting, and I will need the help of Jessica for Justice and Missy Mayhem. Rachel, welcome in here. Please rewatch this one. If you're coming through and you're just catching the tail end of this one, watch the early part of it. I got a little bit crazy. Again, this was the publicly buzzed trial that I was absolutely going to be covering, and now it's over. We have an admitted murderer in Bryan Kohberger, and it is what it is. So, Sunday, Murder Church in the morning. That evening, that midday, 3 Eastern. Jack from Never a Truer Word's going to come on here, and he's going to be doing his second part with me, doing the analysis of of Ted Bundy's last interview hours before execution. And then next Friday is going to be really fun. It's going to be an all-night movie marathon. I've already got one pretty major guest to start us out with, and then I'm going to have to sprinkle some stuff out throughout the evening, throughout the night, through into the morning hours, because I'm going to try to go as early as I can. But the very first guest is someone that's never been on this channel, and someone that has made quite the name for themselves here lately in this space, and I'm excited to have him on for the first time. Not going to give it up just yet. Keep your eyes on X and on socials for that one. I'm also trying to work on some other shows, of course, for this month, and yeah, we're going to keep rocking and rolling here. That's the only way we know how to do it at Publicly Buzzed, and I appreciate all of you fine folks. That's all I know. That's all I know. Thank you, True Crime Butterfly, for coming in here. Let me see where I can send you. See if there's anybody cool doing a show later that I can send you to that could use the help, maybe. Let's see. I don't see anybody that's really in my super, oh, okay, hold on. I'll send you to Miss Shorty. I think that will be the best one. It's her birthday tonight. I saw her post that earlier. So yeah, let's do that. Let's send you to Miss Shorty tonight. It's her birthday. She does a lot of really cool content. Yeah, and when you get there, let her know that the Buzz Nation sent you over. So I really appreciate it, guys. Again, I need to find a new case to really sink my teeth into. There's a couple of different ones that are out here right now, and I need to find something. Courtney Clenny's going to be coming, and I've done a few shows on that, so that's going to be on my radar, but I need to find something else that I can that can catch my interest and get me going. So, hey man, dude, you smoking some pork butts? Shit, let's go. Let's do it. Let's go. All right, dude, that would be awesome. I don't know if Mascot has ever done any interviews or something. That would actually be amazing. That would be cool. All right, guys, I love you all. Thank you all so much. Happy 4th of July. I'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening. Have a great Friday, and then come back tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern time, for a really fun show with 2 beautiful ladies that are really legit, really cool, kind souls, and we're going to have a fun night. I love you guys. Let's go.
This hurts.